Converted man here, and I've got Atheist Snail.
Hi, everybody.
Atheist Snail. You're a snail, right? Oh my. Okay. Forgot that the thing was going to play because I had it on the other window. Atheist Snail's a snail. And as you know, she became an atheist because Lot's wife turned into salt in the Bible. And then later it's like, talking about salt and like salt can lose its saltiness. And she was like, you know what? That's it. First you turn a person into salt, now this. Screw this religion. I'm not going to believe this. And that's why she's an atheist. And for me, I'm an atheist because they didn't mention lobsters. And that was the end of it for me. I was like, you didn't mention the thing that I'm going to memify in the future that I don't know about in the past. And so anyways.
You mean you're not a time traveling lobster riding atheist?
Well, now I am. I mean, because you said that. Now I have to do that too. But anyway, so she's a snail and I ride lobsters, and then now we've got a pig atheist. It's great. I don't know what's happening anymore. So yeah, we're doing this interview talk, but then I realized like she already did an interview with Iowan, and he asked her everything. So I've got nothing left to ask her, so I'm just gonna talk, and here we are.
I don't think he asked me everything, but he asked me a bit.
What's the difference between a snail and a slug? What's going on there? You know all about snails, right? I'm going to just assume that you know everything there is to know about snails and ask you all these snail-related questions.
Oh, that would be a bad assumption.
All right, here we go. So what's the difference between a snail and a slug?
The house on its back.
Oh, the house on it. Okay, that's a good answer. Do the snails, are they born with the shell, or do they crawl into it? How does that work? You know everything there is to know about snails.
I would have to do a little research. I picked mine up on my way across the world.
Why does
hermit crab?
Why are snails so slow? Or are they just slow compared to their relative size are actually fast? And there was only that one movie about snails. Did you see that movie? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Not ringing any bells.
It's called Turbo, and the guy, he's a snail, and he makes himself into a race car. He replaces his shell with a race car, and he goes really fast. And so it's like a racing movie, but they're all snails. It's great.
It sounds hilarious, but
I can't believe you haven't seen it.
No, it sounds like I missed it. But don't get started about relative velocity. That sounds like physics, and I don't get physics, and I'm not talking about it. I refuse.
Okay, so if you put a snail in a box, and then you put this little particle in there, and there's a 50-50 chance that the particle will decay.
No. Schrodinger's cat.
No, Schrodinger's snail. You've never heard of that?
Not the snail one.
Not the snail one.
But
the thing is, though, it's actually more complex than the cat one because it's so slow. You open it, and before you realize if it's alive or dead, it takes you a while to understand which it is. So you also have relativity built into there because from the snail's point of view, it's already alive or dead. But because it takes a longer time for the light to reach you because it's a snail, that's what happens. So.
You're evil. I already have horrible flashbacks to college physics. I don't need more.
Okay. What did you do in college? Hey, look, I found a question that nobody asked yet.
Well, in undergrad, I studied. I think my major in undergrad was called animal biology or something, but it had nothing to do with what I went to grad school for. But in undergrad, I went to a school with a bunch of nerds, so I spent a lot of time hanging around with engineering geeks who attempted to teach me physics and computers, and all of them failed. I did get the calculus thing. the math made perfect sense. The concepts make absolutely no sense. I remember sitting in physics class and they're trying to explain gravity and everybody around me is nodding and I'm going, what?
Yeah, I don't understand gravity. You know, what's up with gravity? Just explain that to me.
No. I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe that it works and I get the physicists understand it. But they show you those diagrams about the moon attracting the sun and I'm like, huh? Whatever. So no one can ever accuse me of coming to my atheism via cosmology and physics, because boy, I didn't.
Yeah, you said, we were talking a little bit before we started about, you're going to have like probably a multi-part series of your deconversion on your own YouTube channel. Did you want to go over that like in brief here? Or
Sure.
I know you covered it already, but I don't care,
That's okay. I was raised Catholic. My whole family, well, my father's side and all his extended family is Catholic. My mother is Lutheran. And I always get this wrong. I can't remember if their family was Missouri Synod or the other one. One are crazy fundamentalists and the other is not, and they're the is not fundamentalist one. And I can't keep straight which is which. So they had a mixed faith marriage, even though my mom did convert eventually. So Catholic was my thing growing up. And between like 12 and 14, I was, actually, I don't know if it was like this in other parishes because we had a really small church, so not a lot of kids. But me and my sister were both altar servers. And at that time, it was just, part of the options growing up with being a nun, because you couldn't be a priest. And I really wanted to be a Jesuit priest. But I thought being a nun would be another option. So I started reading the Bible and I went, wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense. And then I got confirmed, even though it didn't make any sense and I wasn't sure I believed it.
Wow.
And I ended up in college and I was just like, I don't really want to do this anymore. So I just stopped going to church. And on and off over the next, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, I kept going back and trying to read the Bible and understand, and I could never quite make it. So I stopped calling myself, I called myself a lapsed Catholic till like, I don't know, my mid-20s. And then I just kind of answered non-religious or spiritual. And I missed the whole woo-woo, I don't know what you call it, the Wiccan thing. I never got into that. It made no sense to me. I suppose I kind of fell into a generic deist position if I'm looking back on it. Like a God started it all, but he wasn't really necessarily involved in any of the religions. But he wasn't necessarily good or evil. It was, I didn't really have a clearly defined position. I just, God was there until I like looked at it one day and went, no, there really isn't a God. And that's just where I ended up in my mid-30s going, oh. And then like 5 to 6 months ago, I stumbled across the YouTube atheist community and I kind of lurked for a couple of months. And then I started posting little messages here and there and talking to people. And then I ended up here.
Did you have any sort of epiphany regarding like the afterlife and things of that nature too, or did that just all dissolve at the same time that the God idea did?
I think it actually went before the God idea did.
Yeah,
it probably went about the same time, but I think it went before because I think it made the God idea easier to let go of. Because what was the point of God if there was no afterlife? I mean,
I like asking believers every now and then. I'll ask them if they have to choose between there's a God but no afterlife, or an afterlife but no God, which would they choose and why? To try to see what's most important to them, really, and just explore that question. And it's interesting, it's like, well, if there's no afterlife, then, what would be the point of God existing? Well, it's interesting that God exists. I mean, it would be an interesting thing to know about. But I think the other way around is that there's an afterlife without a God. I think that more people would be okay with that, because it's like, well, I still get to exist, so that's something at least.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting thought experiment. I don't think I've ever heard it proposed quite that way. I remember running across, that's almost, what was that movie with, was it a Robin Williams movie in the afterlife?
What Dreams May Come.
Yeah, that's almost the concept of that, because there isn't really.
Yeah, there's a God, or they say there is, but it's like, well, it's out there or whatever.
It's out there, but yeah,
you don't ever see it, or they don't interact.
It doesn't seem to interfere or anything.
Yeah,
because they talked to, because God, it's been a long time since I've read or watched What Dream May Come, because hell was kind of self-imposed in that, I think.
It's, in my view, it's not a very good movie, but I mean, it's just weird. It's a weird movie, it's just one of those, you have to be in the right mood for it. The other thing we had talked about, and this, I think, there's no transition into this, so we're just going to throw it in there. Screw it. The Islamophobia.
Oh, you're going to bring this up when I'm still bouncing this around.
Yeah. Well,
okay. Well, let's go for it.
This is, because I like this topic because it deals with natural language, which is what informal logic is interested in investigating. Is what we're doing right now. This is natural language that we're doing, because I'm assuming that you understand what the words are that I'm saying, and you assume that I understand the words that you're saying, and who knows if we actually do.
I know, isn't that there's a whole branch of science about that gets fascinating. I get to
linguistics. There's a whole field of that. So it's like, well, we, for the most part, it seems that we do mean the same thing when we use the word the. You don't really think about that word particularly. But it's like red. Okay, we probably mean the same light pattern, and we could probably devise a scientific experiment about that or whatever. But then it gets more complicated, like with the word God or spirit or heart or art. Art is a great one. It's like, well, what is art? Well, nobody can answer that, or what is beauty? It's like, well, it's this abstract idea, an abstract concept, so it can't really nail it down. And so what I think certain ideologies are doing is they're trying to take what we understand of language and turn it in a way that is useful to political gain. So we don't like the word homophobia. We know what that means. We've seen that. We recognize that. We know that that's bad. So to add phobia to the end of any word makes it bad. So Islamophobia is, I think, a way to make the conversation about something that it wasn't about before.
So I would agree with that point. So probably we should clue the listeners in a little bit on what we were talking about. In planning for this, we were talking about some concepts I've been tossing around in my head. And one of the things is just a concern of mine that I see all over in these memes. Sorry, the word looks like meme to me. It's memes. People saying that there is no Islamophobia, and I would agree. And then that I'm not allowed to use bigotry. I don't know if I'm wording this right. That the bigotry as applied to a religion is a problem too, because bigotry is supposed to be for races. And I would agree that on the TV and the news, on YouTube and stuff, Islamophobia gets tossed around everywhere and applied to people that aren't really Islamophobic, that are actually just criticizing the religion itself or a particular person who is using the religion to do horrible things. Because let's be honest, Islam is boiled down hatred. But there doesn't seem to be a word for the people. There doesn't seem to be a way that's appropriate to also talk about that there are people around us that have unreasonable fears about people in this religion, because there are reasonable fears about this religion. There absolutely are. But there are also people with unreasonable fears. For a non-personal one, last summer, some guy walked into a bar in, God, was it Indiana or Arkansas or somewhere, and shot 2 Pakistani men, and his reason was he thought they were Muslim. And if that's not a form of bigotry, I don't know what is, because I don't know how that's any different from the bigotry from the crazy guy who went to New York to kill a black man that same summer. So I just think as skeptics, yes, we need to call out the people who are saying this person is Islamophobic when they're actually just criticizing the religion. And there is also this group of people, and I know more than a few of them, which frightens me, that are just outright bigoted against anyone they think is in this religion or who actually is in this religion. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No. That's a lot to take in, obviously. Well, when we say the word bigot, as you mentioned, that's applied to race, not to religion. So we need a different word.
Well, and I looked that up because people have been telling me that, and the actual definition of bigotry, I'm pulling this now. This is dictionary.com, so take it for what it's worth. Intolerance towards those who hold different opinions from oneself. So we've defined it as someone who we've in our community said, oh, bigotry only applies to race or ethnic origin. And maybe we want to keep it that way, but there needs to be, I personally think there needs to be a way to also talk about this particular bias, because I think there's no reason we can't call out both problems.
Yeah, well, the again, this is natural language. How do people tend to use the word bigotry? And that's something that's hard to gauge without some sort of massive research on that. But that would be something that you have to kind of ferret out. What is it when they say this? What do they mean by that, or what could they mean? Or just straight up ask them, well, what do you mean by that? And so if somebody's going out and they're hurting or killing or whatever, or somebody, because they think that they are of a group of this religion, for the Jews, you call that anti-Semitic.
Which is a form of bigotry.
Yeah, I suppose. But there it's a kind of a different thing in a way, but it's not, because to be Jewish, you can be Jewish because you're a Jew, and that's what you're born as. So it is a race, but it's also a religion that you can convert into. So it's both, And so are you killing them because of their race or because of their religion? And you might say, well, I killed them because of their religion. So you're not racist, you're just anti their religion, but it's still something that you're against, and that's bad no matter what, So the idea, so
take the religion out of it for a second. What is misogyny bigotry?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on how the person themselves is using that word, and that's why it requires some critical analysis of the wording that the person is using. And again, if you can ask them, that's ideal. But you can't always ask a person what they mean, because it might be written down or in part of a speech they gave or whatever. So you have to try to figure out what they probably mean by the surrounding context of it. So if, with that dictionary definition you had in mind, it's like, well, it fits within bigotry, but maybe when they use it, they might mean it a different way. It just depends. And so it's hard to say without something specific to analyze, but I I don't even want to generalize it, because again, that takes away from it, which is the core of this problem is, does this word apply? Does it make sense to say Jewish phobia? Well, no, because we already have anti-Semitic, so we already had a word for it, so we didn't need. So here is a word that is interesting because it's the phobia to be afraid of, rather than when I hear anti-Semitic, I don't hear that in my head, but that's just a personal, view, right?
Yeah.
So how do other people hear the word anti-Semitic? Do they, if it was Jewish phobia, would they have a different response than anti-Semitic, for example? So by making it this other word, do we change how people perceive the topic at hand? So it's like, oh, you want to kill all these people because they're Muslim, so you're Islamophobia. Well, you're anti-Islamic. What There's a difference there, because one is you're afraid of X, and the other is you're against X.
Yeah, no, I can see that. That makes sense. It's just, this isn't and maybe I'm missing it because again, I've only found the atheistic community here, 5-6 months ago. Maybe this conversation is happening and I'm just not seeing it. It's an interesting conversation to me, and it's like, I I don't know, and part of the fear I probably see in people around me is there isn't, excuse me, horrible English, a huge Muslim community in my area, small, rural, Christian, Midwestern. So maybe in areas where there is a bigger Muslim population, maybe this isn't a conversation that needs to be happening. But I see, if I was a Muslim and I had moved to this area and I was thinking about coming out of my religion, there are quite a few of my friends and neighbors who, in that situation, I look at them and I go, I don't know if I'd be comfortable talking with them, because I'm not sure, one, how they would react to the atheism thing, but two, just to the Muslim talking about their religion thing. I'm not expressing myself well here.
Well, yeah, there's a difference between how a given community may or may not react to a person from religion X, in general, because they have preconceived notions like, okay, that's a dangerous religion. Well, then hypothetically, if I leave that religion, that should be good, and therefore you should welcome me with open arms. But if they continue to perceive me as a danger even after I've left that religion, then what's the point of leaving the religion, kind of thing?
Or if I think they would perceive me as a danger.
Right. Yeah. And so, you have a lot of layers to unpack, and that's something that, that's difficult to unravel, because where do you start with it? And really, I suppose you would just start by having conversations with people and trying to, get to them about, look, I understand you don't like this religion, and I don't either, but we've got to invite them with open arms, in the sense that, hey, we like you as a person, and we're going, because, and that's the big thing, is that, attack the idea, not the person, and to make sure that the person understands that I'm not attacking you, I'm attacking the beliefs you hold. And that might be very near and dear to you, so you might not like that. And so, there's different approaches. Like street epistemology is one way to approach that sort of situation. There's logic, there's debate, there's all sorts of different levels that will work on different people, and who knows what will work. You just try different things until something sticks. And at the end of the day, you're just one person, and there's who knows how much you can affect or whatever, but you do the best you can. But with this, so I would think that the topic is important regardless of what area you're in, because there are people that are against religion X and that's it, and it's that sort of level of hate is a problem to me, because there is a difference between I want this to go away or I want this to change versus an emotional baggage that I might bring to the table, because that emotion might govern my action towards something, rather absurd. And so, hate or anger or, things like this, if you don't temper that with logic, well, it might lead to bad things. It might not. Who knows? I remember way back in college, shortly after 9/11 had happened, and going back to, do school stuff was so weird. It was just like, what do you make of this? Because this thing had happened, and you're just, everyone's just kind of like, huh? No one knows what to make of it. But this one gal was saying, we need to nuke them all. Just nuke Iraq. Just kill them all. Nuke them. And I'm like, wow, whoa. And I'm like, why?
No.
And I'm like trying to reason with this person who's so angry. And I'm like, we don't want them to do that to us. What they did to us was wrong. But how is doing that to them? How does that fix it? And they were too far emotional to have any discussion at that point, obviously. But I'm not very wise in social matters, so I'm just like trying to be like, why do you want to kill everybody? I don't understand. No. I know what they did is bad, and I don't like it, and I think that we need to do something in response. But kill everyone? Well, there's people that had nothing to do with it, so that doesn't make sense. There's children that had nothing to do with it, and there's men and women that had nothing to do with it. A few of them might, but who knows? And so to just nuke them all, that's a bit much, But of course, she can't talk about that because she's super emotional right now. Maybe later on she can. So you don't want somebody like that in charge of the red button, so to speak, obviously, right?
Hello, we have somebody like that in charge of the red button. Have you seen the orange Cheeto?
It's, I think that there's a lot of bravado there. I think that it's a lot of talk. Without, the thing is, to talk about that guy is a whole nother can of worms, but I think, and this is just my view, is that the Twitter stuff that he puts out is nobody should take any of that seriously. It's just pure. I think it's his way of distracting people from whatever the bleep he's actually doing. I don't know that it is, but that's just my feeling. It's like
I would love to think that, but based on his actions and how he speaks and how he ran his businesses, basically into the ground.
Yeah, I mean,
I am not sure he is intelligent.
Yeah,
he's not stupid, but he's not.
But the other half of that is, I don't think that he would do anything that he believed would lead to the end of his legacy, which is, his children and their future, because if you look at Eric and Trump.
Hello? You still there?
Yeah, okay. Can you hear?
You cut out for a second. I heard Eric, and then you were gone.
Oh, okay. Well, that's weird. But yeah, if you look at his kids, they're basically miniature versions of him. So he doesn't want them killed. So he's not going to do something that he believes would end in their death, or destroy so much that it wouldn't matter if they were alive. But then again, he could be complete, idiot and kill us all. But there's some safety measures in place, for that. So I trust the system, even if I don't trust necessarily the person that hypothetically has the red button. But at any rate, you know, but my point was, that was kind of a tangent, but the point was, you know, that when you allow your emotion to govern your action, or that can lead to those sort of I want to kill them all thoughts, and that's a bad place to be. And so if somebody is anti-Islamic or anti whatever it is, that is a problem, because there's ways and there's ways, you know. It's like, you know, the line has to be drawn at violence. You know, it's like, look, talk to them, try to negotiate, try to come to a compromise, whatever, but don't commit violence, obviously. You know,
no, and don't. I suppose I'm worried about the violence. I also think that in the conversation about it is, I hate to bring up the Syrian refugees because it's an emotional topic, and it tends to lead to hot buttons on either side. But so one of the things I worry about with the Syrian refugees is you can't take all those people out of there and just transplant them. It's just not possible. I mean, in an ideal world, we get the war in Syria to stop, and we put those people to help those people rebuild their country. I don't know how anyone does that. That's way above my pay grade. But for every month that the children are in those camps, are living in poor squalor, just ignore the adults. I mean, don't want to. I mean, that's bad. But for every month the kids are in a camp where they're not getting an education, where they're not getting proper food, they're not getting proper housing, we're hardwiring their brains more and more for fear. And those are the kind of people, the more hardwired you get into those patterns, the more likely you are to be able to manipulate it into something bad. The more likely not each individual, but the group is to have in the future, down the road, to promulgate this cycle of violence that we've created. And so when I hear people talking about we can't possibly bring over any more refugees into America because it will create Sharia law, or 100,000 people out of our, I forget how many millions of people are in America right now, is going to shift our culture that much. And I go, wait, it's a drop in the bucket. And if we can stop those, if we can bring those kids over and their mothers, and we can save those kids and then get them exposed to secular society, to the, you know, atheists, to freedom from religion, you know, you're not going to get all of those kids out of there, but you're going to get some are going to lean our way. I mean, look at all those private YouTube video, not private, the YouTube video that's a conglomeration of atheists in Islamic countries. You know what I'm talking about? It's a great video. It's a whole bunch of people in their masks holding up their passports showing where they live, and they're atheists in these countries. But you get people here in safe countries out, and you help them help the people in the Islamic countries where they don't have the ability to come out. You stop Egypt from putting in that ban against atheism by helping people here and giving those voices power over there. I'm not making sense again.
Well, no,
these are thoughts in my head that I'm still working out.
Oh yeah, no, that's the best way to get it out, is to talk about things. I don't even know where to begin with trying to address some big issue like immigration of anyone in the first place, because it's a complicated issue.
Oh,
and
it
I think
totally is.
I think that you can reduce it down to the one person. So as an individual, if you personally are willing to let mother or father and a kid live in your house, then that's what help you could hypothetically provide. So is there a list or organization out there to know, hey, I have a room, I'm willing to let these people live here for a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. And then you're on that list, and that's what you could hypothetically do. But then it was Louder with Crowder was doing this silly thing where they were calling up churches and being like, are you going to take refugees? And I'm like, okay, come on, you might as well be asking them to host homeless people in their churches, because churches hypothetically could do that. Some do, but not all. And they should hypothetically, but they don't. So, you know, well, what does that say about, does that say something about the religion? Does that say something about the church? What does it say? I don't know what it says. But if we're going to say, oh, I want to fix this problem, I think that instead of, you know, saying, you know, okay, look, you know, here's what we're going to do from the top down. It's one way to do it if you have enough power to do that. But most of us don't. So it's the individual basis where we can say, I personally would be willing to offer a room for up to, you know, let's say 10 people. You know, let's just say that, you know, or whatever the number is. You sat there and you figured out your budget and you're like, I could afford to feed them, you know. Maybe the government will help me out, but I'm not going to assume that they will. I'm going to assume that it's completely my burden, and this is how many people I could help out myself. Not that and so that's a little bit more personal than, well, I'm going to donate X amount of money to this thing that's going to help them out. Although that's a way to help out too, sure, you know. But I think that the individual sort of responsibility of, you know, of taking it in and saying, yes, I'm personally willing to do X is a potential step to solving that big of a problem. You know, I listened to, I don't know if it was a TED talk or something like that, because TED's kind of gone downhill a lot. But the guy was making a point using marbles or gumballs, I think it was, and how many people were represented by each, and that basically when we're talking about refugees, it's like, it's not even, it's like this little bowl full of gumballs, and here's these giant, you know, stacks of containers with gumballs, you know, that are all, it's like we're not even making a dent in the problem. And
I would say that that is all absolutely true and all bullshit.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, yeah, you're not making a dent, so therefore don't do anything. No, that's not the answer.
Yeah, no,
but you know,
because, well, in part of my frustration right now is just, and this is getting more into politics than I really meant to, because
that's not going to upset anybody.
Because the no, of course not. Neither is my talking about Islamophobia, and you know that.
Oh, no, none of this is going to ruin us at all. Look,
I don't this is going to make anybody upset.
Look, man, you're on my channel. It's already, you've already tainted yourself. Now it's too late.
Part of my frustration just comes out of the fact of I don't know how to word this.
There's a lot of emotion.
There's a lot of emotion, but there's also,
we want to help people.
Yeah, and what I see, and part of it comes out of, and I think I've alluded to this in a couple of our conversations, and on when I talk to the Godless Iowan, and on a couple of definitely my healthcare rant and my gun rant, is a lot of my relatives, I've discovered over the last year and a half to 2 years, not only are more conservative than I thought they were, are more bigoted. And it gets really exhausting to have to constantly go. They post these horrible things that they don't think are horrible, that they don't get, that they completely miss the bigotry. And when you call them on it, they're defensive. They're like, no, it was meant to be funny. I'm like, it really isn't. And I've heard you talk, and it's becoming, I don't want to say acceptable. I don't know. It's becoming more reasonable, I suppose, to talk about the other, like the other is evil, or the other is always wrong. And the world is so complicated that I hate that point of view. It's like there's very rarely situations where it's black and white, where it's simple. And a lot of my relatives have gone to the side of, well, no, the answer is always yes or no, black and white or simple. And it's like, no, really, it isn't. And it tends to bleed into my other conversations, because it's hard to have open conversations with them, because one, I'm not always good at conversations. Okay, a lot, I'm not always good at them. And two, a lot of my, not my politics, but my emotion about them are affected by my atheism, because for them, death isn't the end. For me, when you're dead, everything is over and done with. This is our one shot. This is the kid who was shot by his mother's gun by accident, or the kid who shot his mother by accident's life. It's the kid dying in the orphanage. It's the child dying of a medication that could be a disease that could be treated. The mother who can't treat her diabetes because she needs to feed her kids. But we can't do anything because it has to be capitalism only, or whatever the only is in that particular person's case. It's like, no, there's multiple ways to do things, and there's lots of solutions. Why can't we keep trying and talking? Sorry, that was a really long rant.
No, not at all, not at all. It's your stage to do whatever you want with. I don't know what the bleep this is. I'm gonna change the title to just talk with, because there's no interviewer here.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna
leave it there. I'm gonna leave it there so Lady Unicorn can complain that I called it an interview. I like
Lady Unicorn.
She's awesome. I like that she complains about my stuff. Keeps me on my toes. I want to ask you, because you touched a little bit on this, that there's gray area, and I do agree. But so I want to ask what your view on truth is. What does the word true mean to you?
Emotionally or scientifically?
Both. I'd like to hear both ideas of what you would think that word means.
So scientifically, truth is something that I can prove with 95% or greater accuracy. Something that can be tested and repeatedly looked for and found, where within the statistical margins, the answer is the same. I work in the veterinary medical profession. I know I wasn't saying, I'm going to say it because it makes it easier. I know I'm breaking my own rules already because it's easier to talk like this. Veterinary medicine, probably like any medicine, I can't speak for human doctors, but I'm going to make an assumption here. Medicine is a science, but there's also some art and fudge factor into it, because we can't know everything. So you have to go off your best estimation. So when I talk to someone about a particular disease, when I'm saying you have this particular problem, or your pet does, I'm usually saying that there's a caveat. There's always even with something like diabetes, you're always only so percentage far certain. Okay. It can be a really high percentage. It can be like 99.999, but there's always that hook there that it looks like this, but it's not actually that. So scientifically, you can be really close, but there's always a caveat in my head. There's always that question mark where this could be wrong. I heard I had a coworker, or well, not a coworker, visiting a person from another thing come in and say, well, they told us to always trust ourselves. And I'm like, no. That's when you really screw up in this profession, is when you assume that you are always right. Because I always go forward going, I'm pretty sure I'm right, but I'm always questioning and double checking to the best of my abilities and consulting with specialists. That's a really long answer to probably a short question. I'm sorry.
No. Okay, so that's the scientific truth, and then what would be the emotional?
The emotional philosophic truths are a lot harder to define. The easy answer is that which makes me feel good, but that's not the true answer. um, the truths are the things I feel like I can hang my hat on. Again, with the caveat, with larger margins of error that I could be wrong. Like, when you start getting into philosophy and art, well, art, I have no idea what's good and what's bad. Art's never made sense to me.
Yeah, well, that's completely subjective. I mean,
Completely subjective.
Right. I don't know what it is, but I hate it or like it,
Yeah, that kind of thing. There's part of a phrase is floating through my head, but I can't remember the rest of it. I don't know. Is there in truth no beauty or something, or is there in beauty no truth?
Well, it's like, is ice cream yummy, or not, well, that's, it's, is chocolate better than vanilla? Well, depends who you ask,
So one truth for me, I suppose, that is not scientific remotely at all is help one person without harming another, and it doesn't even.
That's utilitarian ethics, or
yes,
something like
except I'm not completely utilitarian because I can see the downside in it, but I have a heavy dose of utilitarian in me. Is do the most good with the least damage.
Right. That would be my definition of that. Boy, that would be a whole nother Pandora's jar to talk about ethics, because boy, that's a huge thing.
But ethics is part of truth, isn't it?
Could be. I don't know. Depends on what you mean by truth, and within that, it seems that there might be a mix between scientific truth and emotional truth for you when it comes to ethics, because there would be some things that you could say, well, this is, almost certainly, as close to being correct as I can get, and then this thing, well, this is more artistic, so I have to feel this way about it, for example, I think one idea that I've been playing around with in my head would be about, abortion, for example. And like, well, if we had a technology that could remove a fetus from a womb and put it into artificial womb or a surrogate mother, and do little to no damage to the person, then I think that abortion would be wrong at that point, because there'd be no reason to end the life if we have a way to preserve the life that does no longer affects the mother in question. That they can sign a thing that says they're legally not attached to it, etc. Right?
Assuming that, as well as the technology to raise the fetus, that once the fetus was born, that it had appropriate loving raising care.
Right. Well, the system is built in around this whole procedure, right? I mean, that's all very hypothetical. We're not at that technology level.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we're not. Well, I don't know how close we are, but I know we're not there. But so for now, it seems to be that this is a bad solution for a actual issue that we don't have a good answer for yet. And until we have a better answer, this is the only way to deal with this right now, is to say, yes, allow abortion to happen, because there are benefits in society that you have. They expected the crime rate to go insanely high back in, I want to say, the 80s, and it didn't happen. Well, what happened was they opened a bunch of abortion clinics, and so these people that were going to be born weren't, and so therefore the crime didn't rise, because these people didn't come into existence that otherwise would have come into a poor family. And of course, if you're in a poor family, the likelihood that you're going to go into crime is insanely high, especially if you're in a ghettoized area. So, and of course, these are where the abortion clinics were open. So there was a definite association causation that you could map out there. So it's like, well, that benefited society. And yeah, it's a shame that that's the case, but it is the case. The facts don't care about our feelings. I'd rather it be that we had a way to make this not be an issue, but we don't yet. So until we do, the facts are king, and we have to go with what the data says over what our feelings are, which is how I define truth as whatever is true, whatever is really real. I agree that we can approximate that, and I don't assign a percentage to it because I don't know how I would even know what the percentage was, but it's true whether we like it or not, accept it or not, understand it or not, or believe it or not. It's still whatever is true is true. It doesn't matter. Our emotions are irrelevant to that. It's just that's the fact. And so when you get into it's like, well, what political system is best? I go to, I don't know. I have no idea. But I think that there would be a way to figure out some sort of way to map that. Well, first you have to answer what best is, obviously. But, once you have a thing in place, you can hypothetically, you can create a system to map it out and say, here's what it does on paper. Now, what it does in reality might be different, but that's I take a very more analytical approach to truth. Truth being it's real, and then when you get into the art area, that's subjective. So subjectively, that's a beautiful painting to me because it is, and I don't have any real decent reason for it. But there could be underlying that genetically, there might be some predisposition that I have to that piece. And so I could get super analytical with that. And it might be that what I think is beauty is just my brain reacting in a way that it couldn't help but react because I was determined to act that way based on my genes, and there is no free will, and that's just the way it is. Well, I don't like any of that, but if that's true, okay, great. But we're not. I don't think we're at the level, and I don't know if we can get there. We will, to where we can look at every single topic in that analytical, scientific way. One day we might be, but we're not there today.
No, we're definitely not Vulcans yet.
No.
And we're probably a long way from being that.
Well, even if we were, we would, well, that would be a question, if we could purge ourselves of emotion, should we, and all that sort of, hyperhumanism or meta-humanism sort of thoughts, it's like, I don't know now. But, and again, it goes, well, and all of that kind of goes back to, here's a thing that's not, that could be black and white, but right now we can't analyze it properly. Let's put it that way. We have a community, a religion it's a religion, and it's a political view, and it's an ideology called Islam or Muslim, whichever one, either way. And there's reasons to not like it, and there's reasons to be afraid of it. But that's different than saying, well, let's just eliminate those people, because that's not what we would want them to do to us, even though that might be part of their thing. And it is. It says, all non-Muslims either have to die or pay a tax. Well, I'd prefer not to do either of those. So could we come to some sort of compromise?
Yeah.
Well, if they say no, then what? We're not left with many choices. And I think that people see that and are aware of that, and they don't know what to do at that point.
And that's a big, complicated, that's what the UN is for.
Yeah, you guys deal with it.
My personal thought on what it is you just keep talking. You do exactly what you do with the Soviet Union. You're my age, you remember the Berlin Wall falling down. Do you remember how shocking that was?
That was a big deal. I mean, it really was.
Because nobody saw it coming. And,
yeah.
And I think part of the
Tear
reason,
that wall down.
yeah, well, and part of the reason it fell down was because the Soviet Union was collapsing internally, which wasn't super visible to anybody, I assume, but the CIA and MI6 or MI5, whatever the British one is called. But part of it was
who, by the way, are doing a terrific job and are awesome. So no, please don't look at my search history. Sorry, I had to. You know.
No, but I think the other part of it was the two sides never stopped talking. They kept, even when they weren't agreeing, even when they weren't, when it didn't appear that there was any forward momentum. If you look at the history of the Cold War, it literally was about communication. We got through it as a species, or as countries, I suppose, because the species probably would have survived, because both sides talked, even when they were talking around each other instead of to each other. And if it, and this is probably maybe this is a crazy hope, but my thought is, if we just keep talking, even when we're yelling, even when we're not agreeing, and even when we're disagreeing or threatening, if we just keep the lines of communication open, that eventually the compromises can be reached and we can start moving forward. Because let's be honest, Islam is horrible. It's Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, with all the hope and love drained out of it and boiled down to its most dogmatic and hateful bits. That isn't, I know it's survived for centuries and centuries, but in a world where you can look anything up on the internet, where you can go out and see and learn anything, I have a hope and a feeling that is my personal truth that has maybe 20% of evidence behind it, that that kind of hatred can't exist in the face of all that knowledge, with all the beauty that there is out in the world, as long as we help keep talking to the people who are trapped in that mindset, so that as many as possible can escape. And what I expect will happen is the same thing that's happened is in Christianity in America and in Europe and in Great Britain. And the more people who come out, the more that people follow, and the faster the tide goes, because it's no longer a bad thing to be out. It's no longer weird and scary. And there's more people on the other side of the bridge going, hey, look what's over here. Let me tell you about it. Did that make any sense at all?
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think, although it might sound rather fluffy, would be the best response might be love, in that, it's like, it's like, look, I don't want you to, compassion. And I don't want you to hurt me. I don't want you to kill me or tax me. And by the way, I care for you as a human being. And I if you want, I'll give you a hug or a high five or whatever, and you might hate me, but I don't return that feeling, something like that. I remember this has happened more than once, but there was different court cases where the people, get to say whatever they want to the person that's that did the crime, and so all of these people are coming forward telling the guy that killed their kids or whatever, that he's going to hell, that they hate him, that they look forward to when he dies, etc. And the guy's just stone faced. He has absolutely no emotion in his face at all. And a woman comes forward and says, I forgive you. And he completely breaks down in tears and cries.
Yeah, no.
I've seen that, added on to that. Well, because she forgave him because of her religion or whatever, which I'm like, you should forgive him just because you want to, not because you think your religion's telling you to. But regardless, it has an actual effect. Whereas the anger and hatred just seem to embolden and be like, yeah, this is what I expected, this is what I deserve, kind of thing. And it's hard to forgive. So I think that I think that it might be that the hardest things in life are the things that are closer to being right, because it's hard to build something. It's hard to care about somebody. It's easy to destroy. It's easy to hate. So, that might be a thing. I don't know. I mean,
No, it is. And part of building is talking. I mean, um, I got involved at a building project, and oh my gosh, just building a building was the amount of talking before you even get to the point where you're breaking the foundation is freaking insane, like a year in the making type thing, so the talking that we're like you and I are doing, that the GM Skeptic doing, that's Prophet of Zod, the Godless Iowan, that Mrs. Snarky, that everyone is doing out here, that's the stuff that's laying the foundation that helps us help other people in Christianity, in Islam, in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Jainism, in all of these isms. In any dogmatic thing, but religion is an atheist thing. That's the foundation stone to
yeah. Yeah, and also to, I mean, to recognize we can be wrong and we can make mistakes, and to be hopefully more forgiving of that, and understanding of how people approach things and why, and try to understand it from their point of view, and it's like all that sort of, if we're gonna, it's like, I was sitting there trying to think, who are we talking to when we do these YouTube videos and hangouts? Are we just talking to ourselves? Are we just talking to other atheists and skeptics? And if so, what's the point of that? But I'm like, well, you don't know. You don't know who's going to hear it. You don't know who's going to listen. You have no idea who's going to potentially reach. And, I was frustrated for a while because Christian after Christian, theist after theist would just not debate me. And I was very frustrated with that. There was somebody called Christian Apologist who was interested in doing a talk with me. And I said, okay, so when are we going to do this talk? And that was it. No response from that after that. Because they wanted to ask, well, can you prove love or something like that? And I'm like, well, let's talk about that on the air. And that was the end of that. Didn't hear back after that. And it was just really frustrating because it's like, you call yourself a Christian apologist, you got to come and do that on my channel. You got to do that. Otherwise, you're not really that. So, but who knows whether or not they might be, poking around on my older videos or whatever, or somebody else's video. Who knows? I know there's no way to know. I was reached as a Christian by a number of different atheist videos that were out there, and questions, and a lot of the why prophecy is too vague to rely on. There was a lot of the why God doesn't heal amputees was a bigger deal back then than it is now, but a lot of that kept getting thrown at me. I was like, yeah, I've seen that website, whatever. I just like rolled my eyes at it because it's like, well, from the Christian point of view, it's because you don't need a leg or an arm to worship God. You only need, you really only need your brain. You don't need anything else. So none of that, why would God heal that when you don't need that? And so it was a non-starter really. But then, the core of that question is, why would God not do something that is not something that nature can do? That's really what that question is asking. And so that's how the question needs to be asked. Well, if nobody else is going to do it, I'll do it. Now that I'm a skeptic, I can. But when I was a Christian, I didn't see it that way. So, the thing that ultimately deconverted me was logic. So that's what I want to put out there. So we all have to put out what we think will work in the way that we think it will work out there, and throw this net of, there's more to life than just believing in a God. I mean, if you want to believe in a God, okay, yeah, fine. But let's get rid of the negative ideas. Let's I don't understand why we haven't like rewritten the Bible to get rid of all the bad parts, Let's get rid of
the Thomas Jefferson Bible.
No, that one remows all the miracles.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it doesn't remove all the stonings and such. So like get rid of all the stoning to death and all the commands and all the all the murder and death and all that stuff. And I guess Jesus wouldn't die. In that version, you'd just be like, yeah, so anyways, I gotta go, guys, bye. And they'd be like, huh? Okay. See you later. Yeah. Oh, that's gonna happen, by the way, in case anybody don't forget to miss. I heard that the 23rd is the end of the world, so I'm ready for it. I don't know about you, but I'm excited. That's what I've heard lately.
Several end of the worlds already. It's getting to be old hat, man.
I mean, eventually it will be right, because if you keep, I like James Randi said that for a long time he had kept a piece of paper in his pocket that said the date that it was, and said today on whatever the date is, James Randi will die. And so that if he died and they searched his body, they'd find that and think, wow, this is the greatest prophet of all time. Because they didn't know, because he would tear up and throw away the old ones. So they have no idea that he would, that this was just a prediction he made every day.
Sounds like something James Randi would do.
Yeah, so I thought that was brilliant, because that's how that sort of prophecy, quote unquote, how do you, and I've asked that, well, how do you know it's a prophecy until it comes to be? Like, how it's like, well, eventually America will no longer be a democracy. Okay. Well, there's a prophecy. Eventually it will happen. Give it long enough and it will happen. So that's not really a prophecy, is it? Even if it comes to be, that's not really. So what would make a prophecy, and all those sort of questions? But here we go. End of the world 2018. David Mead breaks silence on April 23rd. Apocalypse date. Oh my word. The end of the world could be at hand. So it's the beginning of the apocalypse will be April 23rd. Okay, so that's not really just the end, it's just the beginning of the end. Okay. So the mythical planet X or the second coming of Jesus Christ is going to happen. Either way, we don't know which one. Maybe now, see, I think they're getting it wrong. I think Jesus Christ is the planet X. And that's going to be the big surprise, because nobody is expecting Jesus to be a planet. They're like, wait a minute, you're a planet? He's like, yeah, I was a sheep. Didn't you read the dang book? It says Lamb of God. I was a lamb for a while. Why can't I be a planet? By the way, this is the beginning of the apocalypse. So what are you going to do about it? Oh! So see, they're saying in this article that they're all conspiracy theorists. Well, I mean, come on. We know that they know the truth. They figured it out. I mean, they're super smart. I'm sure they have tons of evidence. But yeah, Christ is going to descend from the heavens during the rapture, and then and then all the religious, all the super special people will go away. Now, see, I actually think that would be a good thing. Let's just say that all the religious people just vanished. That would be paradise. We would be fine. We'd be like, yeah, great, they're all gone. We can make this world better.
My aunt would be so disappointed in you.
They're like all the Christians hanging out there in heaven. They're like, look what they're doing. They're making it better. Those assholes. They're not allowed to do that. We got to go back down there and show them what's what. The golden city descends. And we're like, yeah, we don't need that. We don't care about gold anymore. We already made the world perfect without you guys. You could go ahead, go back up where we came from now.
I have to say this, because I'm going to sound uneducated, and I am in this particular area, because the rapture isn't a big thing, at least in my particular part of the Catholic world. When I first started hearing about the rapture and everything, I went, what the heck are people talking about? So 15 years later, I don't get it. I listen to people, I mean, all the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons. No, Mormons do rapture too, don't they?
I don't know offhand.
Fundamentalist Christian, fundamentalist.
Yeah, I mean it's depending on what Protestant version you go to, it may or may not be a big part of it. So, do you want it explained or?
No, I'm just laughing about it because.
No, I can explain it.
Well, it's basically God coming down, you know, the end of those days. Yeah. Well, it's end of days, but it's like, to me, I have a disconnect in my head because growing up, that was not a thing. I think the first time I heard about the rapture, I think I was 15 or 16 years old, and I think I heard about it in a movie. And I was
like, I'm not surprised that Catholics wouldn't really talk about it, because it does seem more of a Protestant thing, you know, because and I don't know that much about Catholicism. You know, it also depends what church you go to and all that. Even though it's more of a top down system, it's more of a, you know, it's more of an orthodoxy than Protestant is. But you know, and the Pope had said recently that he would like there to maybe be a pastors marry. I'm like, oh, that's good. That would be a good change. You know, let's do that.
It would be a good thing. It's a desperation thing.
Yeah, yeah. So, I
know.
Stop them from messing with the little kids. What do we do?
No, it's not that. No, it really isn't. It isn't. It isn't about the pedophilia. It's a desperation thing. So because I'm in the atheist closet, my family knows several priests, and so I go to dinners and stuff, and I hear a lot of talk. What this is about, at least the scuttlebutt about what this is about, is like many religions, the priest. Well, I don't know if it's true with Protestants. I assume it's probably similar because the pews are empty, but they're having a really hard time getting priests. And part of the reason they're having a hard time getting priests is they can't get married, they can't have families, and of course, women are never going to be priests, at least not in my lifetime or the next, I would guess, unless there's a radical shift. So the compromise would be to have the Pope come out and say, you know what? We've decided we've interpreted the doctrine wrong all these years, and we're going to go back and stop requiring the celibacy. They can get married, to try to get people to be priests in the religion.
Yeah, well, I mean, all that
definitely would be not about the pedophilia. It's about
okay.
It's about the family.
Yeah, because I mean, religion has to change or it dies. I mean, that's really what that boils down to. I think is that, you know, they recognize it's like it's getting harder and harder to recruit guys because they want to have a family. So therefore, if we want to keep recruiting guys, we're going to have to change our policy. Okay, well, I guess we'll change, because if we don't change, then we diminish in size, and then eventually it dies. I've been to churches that I would call dying churches, where everybody is like super old, like they're all like, except for a few people, like you know, it's all like, you know, in their 80s or 90s, and the pastor's super old, and it's just so stale and boring, and everything is done the way it had been done for years and years and years, and they're like, well, what do we do to get new people in? It's like, how about any change at all? Nope, not going to do that. We got to stick with their tradition. Okay, so you're not going to ever get new people in, because these people are too old to have kids, so they're not going to bring in anybody new. And the few young people that are here are really here because of the old folks that they're related to. So when they die, they're not going to come anymore. So your church is going to collapse because it can't support itself. So you have to change or you die. That's it. And
the Catholic Church is the original chameleon king of that. I mean, people talk about is it Seth Andrews who talks about Christianity stealing all the best things in the world? I think it's him. But the Catholic Church was the originator of that.
Oh yeah. But yeah, as far as
the church mutates every 50, 60 years. I can even see it mutating from when I was a kid, and I'm like, oh look, look at what.
Well, it has to, and that's a good thing. But it's it's a slow change, but it is a change, and the same thing will happen to Islam. It's just we need it to happen faster with Islam.
Oh God, yes.
Like let's accelerate that change because we can't. Our weapons are too good now. Like
No, one of the things that I think I wonder, and I'm sure some historian somewhere has done a study on this, but I'm like, back when the Catholic Church had the height of its power and was running all those crusades and killing all those people, I'm like, just how bad would the church have been at that point in time compared to like modern day Islam now? And I'm like,
yeah, it
would have been pretty bad.
Well, if the church had had the sort of weapons we have now,
gosh,
it would have been an insanely higher death toll. I mean, there's no, and it probably would have spread even further than it did. But it depends on what technology everybody else had. Like, so I mean, it's an alternate history sort of thing that you could.
No, and it's a combination of technology and power. You'd have to imagine a world where they have both. Power that they had in the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages, plus the technology, which is kind of a mind twist.
Yeah, it pretty much everybody would be Christian, just about, I think, or Catholic rather. I've
been informed I wasn't Christian, so better call me
Catholic. Join the club. You're not a Christian because have you gotten yet? You'll get this eventually, but I've gotten. That I wasn't ever a Christian in the first place because a true Christian can't deconvert. Have you had that?
I have not had that because mostly when they ask me what I was and I admit that I'm Catholic, I turn into a Mary worshiping idolater. So the conversation.
Right. So you weren't a Christian anyway. So it doesn't.
Yeah. No, I don't qualify
Catholic as Christian. It's viewed as different than Christian. I mean, that was always my view at any rate. That it was like Catholic and then Christian. And I was like, no, it's Catholic and Protestant. No, it's Catholic and Christian. If you're Catholic, that's different than being a Christian. I don't know why. It just is,
From both the Catholic side and the atheistic side, I look at that sentence. There's Catholics and Christians, and I go, that makes no sense.
No, that's how it look. That's what the perception was. I don't know why. I don't know who gave it to us or when, but
Martin Luther.
No, yeah.
The guy giving all the notes on the door, Martin Luther.
Yeah. Here's my complaints. That's what Islam needs is a Martin Luther, to really shake things up.
Yeah.
Hey, look, this is what we're doing wrong and how to change it. And but oh well. Anyways, I don't know, man.
Think we've babbled long enough to annoy everybody?
I don't know. I mean, there's something else. I had an idea at some point in my brain, and I don't know what happened to it. So hey, people in chat, ask questions for Snail, and she will answer them. Maybe there is a chat, but there's not much going on.
How do I see the chat?
You gotta like bring up my channel and then like click on the thing and then like the thing pops up with the thing.
You gotta remember, I'm new at this. I don't know.
Go to YouTube in a different window that's not the window you're looking at, because otherwise you'll crash and then you won't be in the Hangout.
All right,
go to YouTube and then you go to my channel and then you'll see a hiccup.
Oh, mute you. Okay, there we are.
The thing, because otherwise you'll hear two of me and one is more than enough. And then if you click on the top little left arrow, it says live chat, which is and that's the one you want to click, and then you see all these people saying things, and there you go. So the last question that was asked was Snuffy had asked what he missed, so I tried to summarize everything that we did in a sentence. So I think it was I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, you missed the part where
I missed a few things, but you know,
where we talked about politics and probably
yeah, you know, I mean, you know, look, I covered the things that I cared about. All right, you can type in things you care about. Look, I wanted my meme that you hate salt to be in there. I didn't. The other things were just added bonuses. And see, if you go all the way up to the very top, you'll see where I linked the Turbo movie that's about the snail that you have to watch. You have to. That must be a thing. If that is not a thing, I don't know what I'll do. But this is what you have to do now. This is a requirement. Like this has to be a thing. You have to watch the movie and then you have to give a review on it on your channel. And I will be the only one that likes that. But it will satisfy me and my need, and that's what matters.
As long as no one expects me to be as funny as Hugo and Jake or god awful movies, we're fine.
Look, I expect it to be I hate everything quality.
I don't know what that is either.
Oh, you don't know I hate? See, now, okay, now we're just gonna have to introduce you to YouTubers that I like and make you watch them. It's kind of like your movie sucks guy. He's kind of the same thing.
Okay.
You don't know that either.
Remember, look, YouTube 6 to 8.
Yeah, you know. Okay, look. We could talk about Hayao Miyazaki.
So, does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I'm going to put him out of his misery.
Yeah, put me out of my misery. Just do it already. I can't take it anymore.
No? Okay.
No, nobody. No. Well, they might be typing their questions, you know?
No.
It takes people time. You have to look. I mean, you're a snail, so
this is true.
You know, you got to be used.
Then I'm going to put in a plug for a future video on my channel.
Yeah, do that. Plug your channel. Do Twitter, all that stuff.
Well, I'm not going to plug Twitter because I've gotten 3 posts and a couple of retweets, and I'm still figuring it out.
What's your Twitter? Gotta have it.
Hold on. I don't know. I gotta pull it up. It's at Atheist Snail, I think. Yeah, at Atheistic Snail. Welcome
to the YouTube atheist community. We are mostly friendly. Not deconverted, man. You gotta be aware of that guy. He'll tear into a video of yours randomly. You never know when it's coming. It's like the Spanish Inquisition. Hey, Forbidden Thinker, a long time. Yeah, it is. There are 2 other that are live now. I don't know what you're saying, Hans.
He's saying there's 2 other hangouts going on.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that's... I think
that's what he's saying.
Yeah, well, you know, okay. They compete with, you know, I don't know who I'm competing with. I don't care. I do whatever I want. That's, you know, that's what I do. And, you know.
That's fine.
If I shoot myself in the foot while I do it, which I might, you know.
Just don't bleed out on my time.
Yeah, you know. No, it's, yeah.
Why
do we do that? Like we shoot ourselves in our foot, and then like we'll put our foot in our mouth, and the plug.
Yeah, well, it's also putting my foot in my mouth. So for anybody who was here earlier, we got talking about abortion, and I am working on a video about my views on being a pro-choice, pro-lifer, and I'm definitely pro-choice, but I'm also pro-life.
I want to ask a question.
Really complicated.
I want to ask a question about that video. If you decide that, you know, you can't take care of the video,
I will give it up for adoption.
So you'll go through with it anyways, but then you'll give up the video for adoption.
As long as I'm not forced to make it.
Like if you get like halfway, like when do you give up on a video? Like you're starting to make a video and you think this is going to be a good video. And like you get to a point and you're like, no, I'm just going to delete it. Like,
so
is it 10 minutes in or is it like 20 minutes in? When should we, you know, give up on the life of that video?
I have no idea.
Does it start the moment that you open your video editor software?
I have no idea. Does it start when it's a thought in my brain? It depends on which person you ask.
Man, I've killed. If videos were human life, I'm a mass murderer. I have aborted.
Doing a hangout.
I've aborted so many videos I was gonna do. Like, nope. Like I had like an hour long, ramble, and I was just like, yeah. And it was rendered. It was done. It was ready to go. And I'm like, yeah, it dies. Delete. It was like, it took me hours to make it. And I'm like, nah, I don't feel like it.
I haven't done that yet. I've already, if you want to use the word aborted, I aborted one. I was going to reply to a Christian, a lady who seemed very nice, and I listened to half of her video, and she was talking about atheists. I'm like, oh, I can respond to this, and I saved the video, and I started replying it to, and I script mine out, as I'm sure everyone's noticed, because I do much better with scripts. And I'm replying to it, and I'm typing, and I'm recording my audio and doing this in chunks. And I got about 15 minutes into her video, and all of a sudden the word Satanist came up. I'm like, wait, what? Did I miss something? Did I skip? So I backed up and came forward. And no, apparently all of a sudden atheists were Satanists. And then 30 seconds later, this woman who had seemed sane up till this point, just very religious, was talking about trutherism and flat earth, and there was one other thing, and I went, nope, forget it, I'm not getting into that rabbit hole.
Like, well, now see, that's where I would have been like, okay, I'm gonna cut it off here and be like, and then they went insane at the end.
So Forbidden Thinker, if you're on Twitter, I'm probably going to be looking for you, because I've gotten some lovely drawings, but I haven't designed an avatar yet.
Yeah, I'll put all your links in the thing. Like, once we go off the air, you can tell me all of them, and I'll make sure they're all there. But yeah, so the question you were asked by Hans P.S. Hansen, said,
great name, by the way.
If you've ever gotten the argument that Jesus is the truth, and if you believe in truth, you believe in Jesus.
Jesus, so we're defining Jesus as truth. So I'm pretty sure that's a logical fallacy right there. But so Jesus is the truth, so that's just a redefinition. That's like, is it Hovind who has the 7 definitions of evolution? They're all basically using the wrong word. So that's probably how I take that tact, is if Jesus is the truth, you've redefined the word Jesus to equal truth. So there's a problem there. But if I believe in Jesus, you better show evidence for his truth. Boy, that didn't make much sense.
No, yeah. It would be like this. It'd be premise 1, Jesus equals truth. Premise 2, if you care about, if you want the truth, then you need Jesus. So the conclusion, therefore, you to have the truth, you have Jesus. But you have to show that A equals B, which you didn't. And then you'd have to show that B equals C, which they didn't, and then you'd have to show, and then the conclusion would follow, but they didn't do that. And so yeah, it's just a somewhat of a word salad. I wouldn't say equivocation, but it would be a formal fallacy. Oh man.
So Hans, what do you mean? Do you mean that the truth, Jesus' truth, is a Norwegian thing? Or can I ask the chat room questions? Is that
we don't have rules here. Are you kidding me? There's zero rule. Look, the rule is there is no rule. I've heard variants of that, like, Jesus is love, and so if you believe in love, then you would believe in Jesus. Well, no, just because you said it was that doesn't mean that's what it is. So it's a definition thing, and I can't think of the fallacy right now because my brain doesn't work like that.
Mine doesn't either. But that's how I would answer it. Is by going after the first, basically just redefining truth, and redefining the word Jesus to mean truth instead of it being the proper name for Yeshua, however you say that. Not my first ability. Thank you for your Twitter handle, Forbidden Thinker.
What now apologists like to ask and theists like to ask, what evidence or what thing, let's not even say the word evidence, what would convince you that a God existed? What would that look like?
Oh, Skeptic Pork called me out on this on my because I tried to answer this in one of my explanation videos, and my answer is really quite and Skeptic Pork's right, it's a bit of a cop-out because I can't think of it. I honestly don't know what would convince me that something was God, because everything I could think of that could possibly, I used to say, a couple years ago, until somebody pointed out that an alien could do this, I used to say all of childhood cancer stopping now and forever, it just stopping existing. But then there are actually, science fiction novels where an alien pretends to be God by causing that to happen. It's like, so, it would make me, that kind of thing would make me wonder, but I can think of 16 different ways that could happen, because that sentence, any significantly advanced enough technology is the same as magic. And that's what a miracle is. It's magic. So I don't know how to differentiate between the two.
Yeah, I mean,
so I have no answer to that question, which is a bit of a cop-out.
Well, no, the answer is, in a sense, on one side, it's that nothing could really convince you in a sense. But on the other side, the more important side, is that the difficulty is that the entity, the phenomenon, would, if it was God, hypothetically, it could just make you believe it's God anyways. It could manipulate your brain, but so could something with advanced technology. So,
yeah,
I like to turn that question around and say, well, I don't, I have an answer, empirical evidence to repeatable tests, a valid and sound argument, but, what would convince them that a different God was the real God? Because in their situation, they think that X God is true. And so how would they, if a different God happens to be true, then that God, anything and everything that it could do could just be a test of the actual God. So how would they know? So we're really in the same boat. But I don't, I don't care if the thing wants to be called God, I'll call it God. It doesn't really matter to me, at the end of the day, because I don't, that word has no meaning to me or attachment for me. So, but I think it is an honest answer to say, well, in a way, nothing, but in a way, but at least if you had the sort of level of, what an alien could do, at least you'd have something to explore,
Yeah.
And we don't even have that. So it's kind of like,
no. I remember I can't remember where I read about this, and I don't even know, it was years and years ago. There was a thought experiment that I did on this pathway. It was just a little thing, and something you said reminded me of it, and I'm not even sure what it was reminding me. Is thinking about God as an alien, is even if God actually exists, he actually is an alien, because he is a being completely different from ourselves and from our plane of being. So God actually is an alien. And then the question becomes, why would I worship an alien? And that was a whole 2-year period where, and again, I didn't think about that. It took 20 years to make this journey. I didn't think about this stuff every day. It was here and there, and it just built up. But there was a whole 2-year period where that was bouncing through my head, and I was big into Stargate and the Ori, so that, fed that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I mean, at least if you could, I think Snuffy was saying if that he saw God, then he would believe it. Well, yeah, if you were, if there was this thing, and I don't even know, well, what would that look like? Who knows? But if there was this thing that was some sort of phenomenon manifesting itself and said, "Hey, I'm God," I'd be like, okay, I'd probably scream and run first, and then I'd be like, "Oh, okay, you're God. Whatever, that's cool. So what about I'd start asking questions,
Um, I am not sure that personal experience would make me believe it
Well,
because
no, I wouldn't. I don't know that I'd believe it, but at least, I mean, I'd have something to explore
yeah,
hypothetically, which I
yeah.
don't now.
I
I don't.
just I'm not in any way a neurologist, but of course I've studied neuroscience in veterinary medicine, and the things that you
Oh,
can see in hallucinations are so common and so crazy that I literally I've had bad drug reactions because I'm allergic to everything on the damn planet. I wouldn't have lived to be an adult prior to the 50s. Um, that I haven't I've hallucinated. I mean, on one drug trip, they were trying to fix wisdom teeth. They had to stop because I was trying to sing Mariah Carey and I can't sing, and they couldn't get me to stop because I was in the middle of a movie. So I don't know that a personal experience would actually convince me. It would just make me doubt more because I already don't trust some things in my brain because I know they screw up.
yeah. Well, I was going to say, and that's another sort of argument for God is like, okay, from an animal's perspective, uh, like a cat sees us as a cat, a big cat, basically. So from our puny human, we can't, when we try to perceive God, it's so bigger than us that we can't quite comprehend it. And I'm like, well, then you can't write about it. Then if you can't comprehend it, but here you go, you've written about it. Well, it lowered itself to our level. Well, but it didn't lower itself to my level. So what's but, we know a lot more than, than a cat. But we don't know enough yet to where we could make it so that a cat could understand us. And part of that, well, it would have to do with the brain size itself. It'd have to be big enough to where a cat could be at our level, first of all, right? And then, I mean, like, because you can get primates to learn sign language, and you can get parrots to learn words, um, but the brain and the size of it, and like the brain type has to be the right type. So I suppose we could hypothetically genetically engineer a cat to where it has a brain that's able to understand us. Not today, but eventually, right? Uh, so to say that God couldn't figure out a way to do that to where we could comprehend it on its level is ridiculous. So it's God. It's got more ability than we have, and come on.
Well, and if you're talking about a god, so a god should be able to make us be able to comprehend on our level. To be perfectly honest, if you're talking about an all-powerful, all-knowing God, he should be able to bring himself, him, her, it, self down to our level of understanding and still be able to prove himself if he's an omni god. Because otherwise, if he can't make him comprehensible at the level that we are at, he's got limitations and therefore he's not omni.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we can imagine a scenario that if we had technology X, Y, and Z, that we would be able to do, we could raise the animal to our level or make it so that the animal could understand us at its level. Either way,
Mm-hmm.
if we can hypothetically dream of that and think of that and maybe one day even achieve that, then, well, if you have magic at your disposal, then obviously you can do that. You can do anything. So the fact that you haven't, that's a good counter indication already. Um, uh, and the interesting thing with animals and how they how they behave and how they're parallels to our own behavior. Like you see, sometimes you'll see videos where a dog or a cat or whatever will save another animal that's not even its own species from trouble. So, it's like, well, if they're able to do that at their level, it seems it's like, well, there's morality right there. There's the beginning stages. So I guess I don't know if it's a question you could answer. Would there be, ignoring that we could do genetic modification, would there be enough selective pressure that we could put on an animal to get it to our level?
Absolutely. Just take time.
Yeah.
It's not even a question in my mind, because especially especially if there's another species shepherding the process, and it would take trial and error and practice. But if you look at what we've already done it in a way to dogs more than cats, because cats haven't had the selective pressure that dogs have, but we have taken a wolf that's a wild beast, and using selective pressure, we have molded these into different animals. So dogs are all the same species technically right now. I'm willing to bet in a couple hundred years they aren't going to be, just because there's
a Chihuahua. You can't really breed a pit bull with a Chihuahua.
Yeah, there's already and that's a size thing. You could take the DNA and cross match them, the sperm and the ova, and you could do that. But it's coming where those are going to divide. But if you look at how the brain function works in, say, a border collie compared to a Chihuahua, we've refined and changed their brain function to cause them to do different tracks. So border collies are bred to be herding animals, to be working animals. And actually, a lot of their, so when they have social anxiety problems, when they get into mischief, it's because we don't provide them with work and energy. We've bred these dogs to be hyper intelligent and hyper focused. That's a form of that shepherding already. And then you look at the Chihuahua, it's been bred to be a mostly docile pet that also hunts rodents. So it doesn't have quite this problem solving ability that a border collie does. They are good rat hunter dogs, Snuffy, when allowed to, but they have a different level of problem solving ability. So we're already shepherding these things, and we're not necessarily shepherding them to our level of intelligence. But if you took something like a great ape, possibly a dolphin, elephants, possibly, even some of the larger cats. And that would be a lot more dangerous because the larger cats are definitely predators like we are. You could, in theory, over a couple millennia, probably do some selective breeding, force mutation, force pressure, and I bet you could do it. It would be a big project, but I don't see why it couldn't be done. Sorry, you got me talking about
science. Another thing. Yeah, that's a stupid joke. I won't even say it out loud because it's so dumb. Somebody can read it later and be like, "Oh yeah." With the vet thing, you see sometimes in movies where the mob or whatever will go to a veterinarian to get help with a bullet wound or whatever. So, I mean, how close is a vet to a doctor? Can you actually work on a human and to I mean, ignoring
legally, morally, ethically, or in actuality?
Well, in actuality, could you remove a bullet or perform any sort of?
So if we ended up in one of those apocalyptic situations, I would certainly be able to do basic procedures on you, assuming I had the supplies. Legally and ethically, I'm saying right here and now, I would never do that. I have never done that, and it's totally illegal, and I'm not losing my license.
Oh yeah, like a gangster.
Yeah,
you always see that in the movie. Like they go to the vet because they can't go to the doctor, and they'll pay them or whatever.
A lot of what you see, just like any human doctor will tell you, a lot of what they do in those movies is bullshit.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the skills are the same. There's a joke in veterinary medicine: real doctors work on more than one species.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's probably funny if you're in veterinary medicine, but it's how we tease doctors.
And there was something about it was a hamster. It was some comedian was talking about that they had run over like a hamster or whatever, and the vet had to order these special little miniature tools that are, like, cost a whole lot of money. So is that really a thing that there's, you know, certain?
So for just like any specialty practice, so what an oncologist has, a cancer doctor has in their toolkit compared to what a neurologist or an ophthalmologist has, it's very different. When you work and specialize in those really tiny pocket pets, the tools you need are actually very fine-tuned, and they can be expensive and difficult to get because they're not as widely used, and they have to be very, very finely crafted. But if you want to see really finely crafted equipment, go look at what eye surgeons use. Do surgery on eyes. That stuff is mad crazy well defined. Those tools are insane. It's like playing virtual reality type stuff is how complicated those things are and how tiny it is.
If you had a pet insect, is there a special vet to take that to? Or you just screwed at that point? Well, they have those big beetles, you know, and things like that. So, you know,
there are what are called zoological or wildlife veterinarians. So veterinarians, when you go to school, you study everything. We don't study insects in detail because it's not a common thing, but you study cats, dogs, horses, cattle, rabbits, rodents, fish, all sorts of stuff. And you have to pass the exams to treat all those things. And then people specialize into zoo medicine or wildlife medicine. There are people who specialize in research medicine, and some of those people get double degrees in entomology and those kind of things. So there actually are people there are doctors who work with people who do that kind of specialty breeding. That is not me.
It'd be really hard to find somebody that's like, yeah, I fix bugs, you know, like I'm sure there's a person, but it's going to be hard. You better find them before you get the bug.
You just have to start calling university veterinary professional schools.
Yeah, like before you buy the bug to be your pet, you know, find the vet first, maybe.
the people who'd be looking would be they'd be these people, they'd be almost like entomologists. They'd be looking at they'd be researchers and professionals who are doing specialty work and working with really detailed stuff. It wouldn't be someone who had a praying mantis or hissing cockroaches in their house.
Yeah. I need you to save my aunt. I'm a vet, not a doctor. No. See, look, no, I don't do that. That's a, you know, whatever the term is now. Zoologist, what was it? Insectologist? I don't know. What do you want?
Entomologist?
Entomologist, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm a vet, not an entomologist. Damn it, Jim.
So at Snuffy, I don't know how people can take an honest look at animals and not see we're all related. But I also can't understand, just as a tangent on this, in one of the response videos I did to Views Challenge, whose name I can't actually pronounce because I couldn't understand him, too much of a language barrier. He honestly also couldn't see that animal intelligence and human intelligence was on a scale. He thought that intelligence was a sharp line and that human intelligence was radically different than what we see in animal species, and that animals were literally all instinct and that humans were intelligent. And I'm talking with my hands where no one can see me. I'm crazy. And I don't see how people can't look at the animal world and go, oh, there's gradations of intelligence and we evolved our intelligence too. Sorry, tangent.
So pretty much what I got from this is if I bring in a jellyfish you're the wrong person to bring a jellyfish to. Like
That
that's
is correct, but I know a guy in Florida who does fish and jellyfish.
oh, oh my God.
I don't know that he could save your jellyfish, but he could tell you all about them.
What is there even in a jellyfish to do anything with? It's just, what do you do? Open like a can of strawberry jelly and be like, here you go, you're all better now.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not
How does it work?
I'm not doing it. He's big into fish and oceanic research, and he went through vet school and then went into oceanic research. And the stuff he does is fascinating, and about half of it is beyond my ability to understand.
Bring my giant lobster to him.
There you go. He'd probably be fascinated by your giant lobster.
Yeah. And the snail. I mean, that's where you go when you need help. You go there to get some snail stuff done. I don't know. Jellyfish bigotry. The struggle is real. The thing is with jellyfish is there's no peanut butter fish, so can't make a proper sandwich. A real problem there.
If anybody else knows anybody who works in the veterinary world who works with small animals, I dare you to ask them what they actually think about peanut butter.
What do they think about peanut? Oh yeah, with peanut butter and dogs, there's just a thing with that. Yeah.
We did a non-scientific poll in our office, and it turned out that almost no one in the office eats peanut butter anymore because all you can smell when you see peanut butter is dog.
What about
feeding it to dogs?
When a horse breaks its leg, you have to shoot it. Is that just a meme, or is that only for racing horses? Or
it's not a meme.
Really? So
no.
If a horse breaks its leg, that's it. Why can't you just set it?
The size, weight, healing time, and the personality of the horse. You can try, and it is occasionally successful, but most of the time, the horse will not even if you pin and plate it, the leg just doesn't heal properly, and the horse isn't rideable and usable again, and they're often left permanently crippled. It's been done successfully a couple of times, but it is really complicated, highly expensive, and horses are not the most well-designed evolutionary of animals.
Well, like with a dog, I've seen that they have like missing its hind legs, and they'll put it in like a little doggy wheelchair. So you can't put a horse in like a wheelchair. It wouldn't want it. Like, would it want to live anymore at that point? Or
I don't know that anyone's tried to do that. I not as far as I'm aware, no one has ever amputated a horse's leg and made them three-legged. It is possible that somebody's done it, but I haven't read anything about it or seen.
I mean, from the horse's point of view, like,
I don't know if it's about lack of will to live or just panic. So what happens a lot of times when you try to when you fracture a leg, a horse is too big for a cast to properly immobilize the leg, so you need to do something like a pin or a plate or an external fixture. And if you have those pins and plate, if you've ever broken your bones, they're holding in place, but you have to be really calm and relaxed. So often dogs who've had orthopedic surgeries are on tranquilizers for a couple of weeks. And you can do that with a horse, but you're talking 6 to 8 weeks of keeping that horse from slamming its foot and its leg against the ground. And a lot of times what happens is the metal ends up bending and the bone doesn't end up setting properly because it's just not strong enough. It's a tensile strength versus healing time thing. And then taking the leg off, because the horse is so big, if you remove that fourth limb, they're no longer able to properly balance. And so they tend to break down the other legs. You would break down the other legs really fast, and the horse would end up crippled and basically unable to walk really quickly. They're not a well-designed animal for as much as we use them as a species.
What about the little horses? I forget what they're called. The miniature
miniatures?
Ones. Yeah.
The ponies?
No, not the pony. The one that's the small horse. That's what's it called? You know, the miniature horses.
Miniature horses.
I can't think what they're called.
Yeah, again, I don't based on the size, theoretically that would be possible. I don't know if anybody has done it. It is possible somebody has and I've missed it. There's so much research going on, and most of the research that I see focused on horses is talking about race, because that's the people with the money to afford the kind of surgeries we're talking about. You're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in something the size of a horse for these kind of procedures. The horses are just too big for it to work. In a miniature horse, again, the size would be to your advantage because you're talking about something the size of a dog, and we know it works in dogs. So you might be able to do it in some things then, but I don't know if anybody has, to be perfectly honest. Now you got me curious. I might have to do something.
Yeah, and then there was this giant dog that these one couple had that was like almost, it was the size maybe like of a small pony. So I'd imagine like, but their legs are built differently than a horse, so it probably would have different problems. You know, like it would have.
Yeah, no, it's all about weight, and again,
Yeah, it's all about the way that the leg is built, I guess. Okay,
yeah,
so Practical Magic asked, the hooves of a horse are basically part of a word I can't pronounce, pulmonary system. Each hoof is a heart? Question mark? Is that
no.
okay?
So the pulmonary system is your lungs. For people who don't know, it's your respiratory system. It's where you breathe from your lungs. Each hoof is a heart.
Well, the shape of it, I guess, could be.
I suppose the shape. They may also be referring to there's a large amount of blood vessels in the hooves. The hooves are very sensitive to inflammation.
Isn't the hoof just like a fingernail?
It's a very complicated fingernail.
Okay.
It's a complicated. Think of it as your finger with the last digit with a lot of keratin over the top. It's your fingers all put together. The circuit. Oh, okay. The circulatory. That's
Yeah, that's what they meant. Like, yeah, I meant the other one.
the circulatory. Yes. So, it's not a heart. It is definitely part of your circulatory system, just like it's part of your leg. But it isn't a heart because it doesn't have the musculature to push the blood around. But it is very prone to inflammation and clots in the circulatory system. That's where a lot of problems in the hoof start. Yeah,
Is
that's
it,
it. Club feet encrusted in a tone. That's in it. Yeah, that's a good.
is it a pump?
The heart is a pump, but
Yeah,
not the foot.
no.
Does that help? Mike, answer your question.
I don't think any creature would have. I mean, most hearts are pretty much centralized in
In mammalian species, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much always, center left. I mean, yeah, in all the mammalian species, at any rate.
Yeah, no.
I think fish is. I don't. I think most fish like sharks or whatever have the hearts in the same space as each other or something like that. I mean,
moves blood.
Yeah, I don't know.
So blood in the distal. This feels like so Practical Magic. It feels like what you're hearing is an explanation done to lay people. That I'm not familiar with. I'm not a primary equine vet. I'm peripherally rated. I know equine veterinary medicine because I have to know that because we study it. So I'm not a specialist in equine medicine. But typically, how circulation works in distal limbs, yours and mine, is it's your heart pushes your blood down your arteries to your far distal limbs where it goes into capillary buds, and pressure from your heart pushing it around pushes it around that corner through the capillary beds into your veins, and your veins have valves to prevent the blood from going backwards into the capillaries, and pressure keeps things moving forward. So that is why when you have poor circulation, the first place you get swelling or what they call edema is in your lower legs because that pressure isn't pushing the blood back up.
hey, remember when you were like, if I talk about my job, people are going to ask me all these
Yeah, I
questions
know.
about my job. And I'm
This
like,
is
yeah.
why. This
And
is
then
why
you're like, I'm going to talk about my job anyways, even though
it
I said
made
I
it
was going
easier
to
to
talk
answer the other question.
about
I told you.
This is all your fault. It's not my fault at all.
I'm glad.
It's just I'm like, hey, you were right, but you can take comfort in knowing that you were right. Everybody wants all these questions because it's interesting. You know, it's biology. I mean, it's you know, it's. I mean, I learned some stuff as an EMT, but you know, nowhere. I mean, you know, very basic anatomy stuff. I mean, you know, you know, because you really just it's the bare minimum that you need to know as an EMT.
Well, you know, that bare minimum makes a difference.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
One of my biggest not my biggest complaints. One of my complaints about our education system that I think is, and it's changed. I think either my school district differently than others, or maybe just because I was focused on. I knew after I gave up the nun thing and I really got into college that I wanted to do what I do now. So I was focused on the biology, but I remember having practical health classes where there were detailed talks about how the heart and lungs and everything worked. But I don't know if other people just didn't absorb that like I did, or as the No Child Left Behind crap kicked in, if people stopped learning some of the basics. And yeah, Snuffy, is it Wafflekins? Wafflekiss? Snuffy, I'm going to go with. They definitely have super sensitive feet. In fact, their feet are so sensitive, as you apparently know, that founder can kill them because they can just become unable to walk. And founder is a whole bunch of different problems that we call by one name in the hooves of horses. But like I said before, horses are not well-designed animals. They can't actively vomit, which causes all sorts of problems in their GI system. Their GI tract likes to get colic, which is gas and pain and twisted stomach like you can't believe, which can kill them. They can get pneumonia, which can kill them. Getting pregnant can kill them. The poor things, I doubt they would have survived in the wild if we hadn't decided to domesticate them and mess them up even more. Horses are a good example of bad human design.
Did you hear about the horse that walked into the bar?
Oh gosh.
Bartender's like, hey, why the long face?
Oh, groan. Oh, any more questions about horses?
Why do we turn them into glue? Why do we turn them into glue? No, okay. We stopped. We did. We turned them into glue for a while. I don't know how that worked, but I mean, that was the thing we did, apparently. I mean,
yeah.
It's probably on, you know, just look for it. If you want to know, it's probably on the internet. Just look for free horse images, nude, on Google search with safe search off. I promise nothing bad will happen.
Oh, yeah, you're an evil person.
I don't know where that. No, I'm not going to go down where that thought led me to. Okay, so you went there. Yeah, I know. Sorry. Woo! Let's not talk about that. Okay, Mr. Ed. Yeah, there you go. Horses can. Yeah, again, that would be a thing where we'd have to modify it so that they could talk in the first place. Before we got to Mr. Ed.
Yeah, no. It would take a lot. It'd be a lot harder to evolve a speaking horse, just from the brain standpoint, not even from the bad shape of the mouth and stuff.
Primate would be the easiest. I mean, chimps or apes or you know, those are
primates or dolphins.
Dolphin, yeah, I was gonna say dolphin would be pretty, you know. But then the question with the dolphin is, would you have to make it give it arms so that it could wield tools? Or like, I don't know.
So then the question becomes, and I don't know if anybody's answered this, the question becomes, is intelligence directly related to the ability to form tools via hands, Or can you use other things to form tools? Like they've got videos of fish that use very basic tools underwater, like rocks and stuff.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Even asking questions, can horses make sense now? Whoops.
Right. See, I think the thing with seahorses is that, you know, the scientists identified the male as a female, and they just said, "Screw it." We're just gonna call it no. It's a male. Shut up. Don't ask. No, like no. But look.
Yeah, but back to the dolphin.
Uh-oh.
And the evolution of mammals, that intelligence is in some way related to tool making and the requirements of brain activity that's involved in tool making and how that promotes itself. But we don't know for sure that would be required for all intelligent evolutionary theory, or if there's different tracks that could be taken.
Probably not. I think that the tool thing for humans enabled us to make fire, and so that let us cook meat, and that helped our brain develop faster. But, you know, I mean, then all you'd have, well, then if that's true, all you have to do is feed things cooked meat. There you go.
Yeah. No. I mean,
wait, look. That's how I'm going to think about it. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's science fiction and fantasy. I mean, that's where the alien cultural development, that's where all those, the idea that maybe you could make intelligence this, that way, and the other way, that's where all of those different creatures come from, is us going, well, what happens if that becomes super intelligent, and how would it? Super intelligent dogs, are they not wolves? That is really debatable, because in some ways wolves are more intelligent than dogs, but in other ways dogs are more intelligent than wolves. So it depends on which way you're looking at it.
I don't know. I guess the only way to answer the intelligent question would be to ask whether or not Trump can use tools. And then if he can, then... wait. I was going somewhere with this.
Well,
if he can't use tools, then... No, that doesn't work that way either.
Does an iPhone qualify as a tool? Then he can use them.
Well, no, well, and then you could say he is a tool. So, I mean, you know, you could go that way, you know, but I'm sure he's done a couple things right, you know. So, you know, it's not like he can't do right. Yeah, I'm just saying. There's a couple things I agree with, you know.
No.
If nothing else, you got to say he's doing what I've not seen a president do in my lifetime, which is his campaign promises. Pretty much, he's fulfilled or is trying to fulfill like all of them, and it's like, well, okay, he's doing that. I mean, so yeah, you're getting that. So you can't, you know, I don't know of another president that's done that. So that's pretty cool. So it's like, well, yeah, you didn't want that, but that's what he said he was going to do, and dang it, he's doing it. So at least that he's consistent. Oh man, get him to make better promises next time. I don't know. Anyways, whatever. Anyways, I don't know. You know, yeah. What's the deal with snails and salt? Anyways, why is it that slugs and snails, they don't, you know, explain that to me, because that, you know, I used to do that as a kid. Like, does it hurt them? You know, when you, and it kills them. I know it kills them, because I'd be like, you know, I do that, and I'd be like, it's dying, it's dead, you know, and I took, and I feel a little bit bad about that, maybe.
So the pain thing is going to depend, and I don't remember enough about this to know for sure. I would assume it is that they have enough pain receptors to notice that, but how it kills them is osmotic imbalance. So when you sprinkle the salt on them, their skin is, so the water in the cells is actually sucked out towards the salt, because the salt has a higher osmotic pressure. And I can't remember the generic word for osmotic pressure that isn't osmosis. So somebody can remember, if that makes sense. It's capillary action. The water is basically sucked towards the salt, and you basically dehydrate the snail, and your cells require water, and without the water, you die.
Yeah. Well,
we all went quiet while we all
I had to process that and look at chat and respond to that, and that's, I don't know what happened. It was good though. It was all good.
I
But
think
okay, now here's the thing: like the staunchest, most rigorous animal rights activists, like they will not hesitate to kill an insect. Like we just don't care about insects. Like they deserve death. We go nope, dead. You know, we just it's not. You know,
I've actually met someone who wouldn't.
oh
I don't
really?
think I'd call them
I'd
an
be like,
animal
here,
rights
you
activist.
put a bug on them, they're gonna change their mind real fast.
I never actually did that test. I mostly avoided them. They
Yeah.
were crazy.
Like, look, man, look, if I see a spider, it needs fire. And then, you know, if I see any other bug, it needs like boot. That's, you know, and I don't feel, you know, I only feel bad when they make a sound. Like you can hear them go crunch. That I hate. That makes me feel weird and icky. You know, it's not like I enjoy killing them. It's like, look, you're in my house and you don't belong here. So now you die. Oh, you're a fly? Guess what? This thing is I have an electric fly swatter. Not only are you dead, but you're electrified as you die. So that will teach you. Tell your friends about me. And I don't feel bad. I don't feel guilty. You know, it's horrible. But if you did it to an animal, like, you know, it's a different. Like if a fly was as big as a bird, I don't think you'd want to kill it.
I think
Yeah.
that'd be awful messy.
Well, yeah, that too. But I mean, you know, birds are nice. You know, flies.
So
I don't know what. Help me get out of this tangent.
well, I'm going to take you down the tangent even more because what you're talking about is the ethics of animal rights and where we gradiate how we assign value to different species. And
Well, the cockroaches have the right to go into the hotel or not, and if they go in, they die, and if they don't, then they live.
And what it comes down to mostly is the same thing that a lot of things come down to is practicality. We've decided as a species, rightly or wrongly, I personally think rightly, but there is a significant argument to be made on the other side that humans are the most valuable, and then we choose to assign value to different species based on practicality, on their personal intelligence, on their attractability. Let's be honest, humans put more price on things that are attractive, on their utility, on a whole bunch of different things, on their intelligence, how we empathize with them. And that scale goes down as you get towards fish, towards rodents and reptiles and everything. And I don't necessarily think that's evil as long as we're, as a species, conscious and aware of the fact that we've decided that this outweighs this, this outweighs this, and we have good reasons for that.
Yeah, I mean, I met somebody and talked to somebody. Well, I didn't meet them, but I met them online. You know what?
Yep.
I'm gonna redo what it's just. I'm gonna start from the beginning. Okay, 13 billion years ago. But yeah, there was this person that was like, that they would save an animal over a person or whatever, and I'm like, really? Like, if it was your own kid versus your pet, you'd save your pet first? And they're like, yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay.
And I would find that person.
Okay, I mean, whatever. I think you got your priorities a little bit whacked, but
I would tend to agree that that's an inappropriate priority. There is some value in the debate and the discussion that are that we need to, as we advance as a species, if we're going to continue to be moral and ethical, actually evaluate those priorities and go, are we doing the best we can for other animals? But I think that's a lower priority than are we treating each other as human beings better?
Yeah. I mean, it's I like there was this animation. I don't know why. I don't remember what this from. I'm gonna have to find it on YouTube. this roach motel or whatever. It was like this little cartoon, and it got the roach, and it's like, teach the roaches a lesson, and like it rips off its legs and pounds the roach with its own legs. It was like a torture chamber for the bug. It was like, really just show it who's boss. And like,
so Snuffy, I would agree as long as that person can actually save themselves and isn't injured. I think usually in the situation, they're talking about is somebody's injured.
Deconverted man has just lost it.
Well, I think you lost it years ago, and I've only known you a couple of months.
Okay.
Anybody who willingly puts themselves out on YouTube to talk to people has probably lost it in some manner. I mean, we're all putting ourselves out here to, get screamed at. We're all crazy.
It's okay. It's okay. Look, the thing is, again, it's the, it's the difference between, like as a kid or whatever, like you might burn ants with a magnifying glass until you realize that they're living creatures and there's no reason to do that. They don't deserve that, and what I learned, because I wanted to get rid of these ants and didn't want to kill them, and I found that as an adult, I learned that I saw shock, like you draw on a chalkboard shock, that they don't like it. And I'm like, oh, that can't be true. I got some shock because, it's like a couple bucks at the store. And I started drawing some shock around the lines that the ants, they didn't want to cross it. Something about it they don't like. So I did that, and I put a line of shock all around the house, and then the ants just went away on their own. They did not come back. So, yeah, I mean, there are ways to be more humane than what we do.
Yeah. I mean,
but if it's a spider, it's dead. Just flamethrower. It's the only answer.
I think it's all about balance and priorities and just being realistic, but also ethical. I mean, I'm in no way a vegan or a vegetarian. I like my meat too much, but I do want my meat to be raised humanely and appropriately and at least as healthy as possible with as minimal suffering as possible. And I think there's a way to make that balance. That's my personal opinion. And I'm afraid I'm not a big animal rights activist. Sorry.
Which is weird because, now one thing, and this comes up with normal doctors as well as, you're a normal.
I know what you mean.
Normal doctor. You're not normal. You're an abnormal doctor. Doctor versus vet. Whatever. My brain. I'll just start again. Still thinking about the cartoon. Just go on with that. Is that there's this thought that it comes into my head at any rate that the doctor isn't really making me better. They're making me only better enough so that I will live long enough to come and see them again. And it's kind of like the automotive mechanic theory, where it's like you take your car in and they'll fix it, but they won't really fix it. They'll leave a little bit of something wrong, so you have to come back, and so there's that fear. Now with doctors and vets, they have a certain thing that, that they could lose their license, but with a mechanic, maybe not as much of a deal there, which maybe there should be. But
so 2 ways to help your brain not go that way. And I know that's a really common, and I don't hear it so much about doctors. I hear it about the pharmaceutical industry, for which there is some problems and concerns there. But doctors and veterinarians, nobody went into those professions looking not to cure people. Even the people who went into it, and there are people, especially I'm sure on the human side, who went in it to make the big bucks or to become the big name. You get the big bucks and you get the big name by curing people, by making things better. Most of us are, I have lots of clients I love and adore, but if I'm seeing them a lot, it's depressing because it means I'm not fixing whatever problem is going on. And that is hard, because you have to have these really hard conversations. So you want to be the person fixing and solving that problem, because that's usually what got you into that situation for whatever reason. People like me did it because we wanted to learn, and we wanted to cure, and we wanted to make the world better in our own little ways. I know surgeons who have gotten into it because they wanted to be the best surgeon ever. They wanted to be this top thing. And again, they're never going to their goal would be to see you back once for your checkup, and then they want you to go off and run and never see you again. As for the whole conversation about who was it that got, is it Goldman Sachs that got caught talking about how curing people costs the pharmaceutical industry money? Yes, at the top level, there are definitely executives, there are definitely analysts, and there are definitely banker type people who run that, who are going, well, if we fix this problem, we're going to make X money. If we make it a chronic but survivable condition, we look good and we make X much more amount of money. The researchers, the people in the labs, the people running the studies, the people actually doing the work, those people aren't out to make money. Those people are out to save lives. A lot of them are going to be people who went into it because they lost a family member to cancer, or they saw this hole or this niche that needed to be filled. Not all of them. Some of them are also out for the Nobel Prize for winning this, that, and the other thing. But you don't get those prizes and those recognitions for finding the thing that makes a chronic illness chronic. You get it for curing something major. Oh yeah, Snuffy. There are definitely just like in any profession, there are bad apples.
So, is it true that autism causes vaccines?
I wish it worked that way around. Unfortunately, too many people in the world are convinced it's the other way around, even though it's been proven false. That's been proven to be a lie. I don't know how many times.
And well, you were explaining important science and things that matter.
I see you found something on Saturday night.
I found the thing that I was thinking of in my head about the roach getting tortured. I'm so happy. This is so stupid. Like, Deconversion man, be serious. You got a guest on that knows all this stuff, and you're talking about this stupid thing. What's wrong with you? Look. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Again, you're an atheist out on YouTube. There's probably a lot wrong with you, just like there is with everybody.
Okay. We can do some animal to human transplant. Like, is it? I want to say pig heart or what other to human or what else? I think
there's actually they're actually done some studies with several species. The problem with transplanting across species line is the same problem we have when you do transplants, where I'm sure you guys have seen TV shows where they talk about cross matching and typing. Is when you cross species lines, those reactions can sometimes be even more complicated. The ideal world would be exactly what has been proposed in science fiction, is the ability to grow from your own DNA a new heart in a vat, a new liver in a vat. And I would be completely unsurprised if that didn't happen in the next couple of lifetimes, because it would be it's a technology that we definitely are starting to get the building.
I desperately need a new brain, so if they could go ahead and work on that, that'd be great.
The brain would be a lot harder, actually, because how do you mimic all the so the liver, the lungs, your kidney, your bone marrow, all of that doesn't have memory. But what makes you who you are?
Oh, who knows? Oh, no, we're not. Look, I don't know. Well, the thing is with that, because I don't know that there is an answer, because they've done studies with people like have their brain hemisphere that they had to have it cut. And so the left side of the brain will be a whole separate personality from the right side. Okay, from the outside looking in, you have two personalities. So basically you have two people, but it's one person. So like we call them, whatever their name was going in, Frank or whatever. But then we have to call one of them Frank, and the other one has to have a new name then, because it's not the same person. So, but from the inside looking out, what do they see? Does only one brain see at the time, or are they both?
So,
I don't know, man.
That's a quick question I can't answer.
No, there's no answer. There's probably no answer to it, because
actually, there might be, because that's the kind of stuff that human neurologists and psychologists are studying all the time. If you want a really good read on that, oh darn, I don't know how to put this in the. There's a book. I was trying to put it in the chat, but it didn't come up with the Wikipedia.
No, put it in the other chat. Put it in the little box here. I don't know how to do anything. So
here, I'll just type the name. It's called "The Man Who Mistook His Wife."
Oh, for a hat.
For a hat by Oliver Sacks.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't read it and you're at all interested in the weirdness that is our brain, the Oliver Sacks recently passed away, but his books are fascinating, and he talks about all this stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, it's what, and the other thing with the one study, and I wish I could find it again. So if anyone knows where it is, let me, throw me a link in email or whatever. The one guy, his left side was an atheist of his brain, and the right side was the theist. And so it's like, well, I guess half of them's going to hell, the other half's going to heaven. What's going on there? But well, the logic side was the atheist, and the creative side was the theist. But it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of interesting. I think that says a lot about what God is. But although they have kind of said the whole left-right side of the brain is kind of true, but not, like, there is parts of the left side that is creative, and there's parts of the right side that is analytic. So it's not
when you get to talking about the brain, any basic definition is going to be wrong, because we have to. It's so complicated that unless you're a neurologist and a really heavy duty one, you have to simplify it with analogies. So yeah, the left right thing isn't exactly true, but it's a good description. But the whole, if you damage our brain, you can change your personality. Yet that is one of those little tiny steps along my path where I was like, wait, if who we are is our soul, that doesn't make sense. Why can I change your personality?
Yeah, well, I've heard answers to that as a theist that, I mean, I don't know that they made sense back then, but it's just kind of was like, oh, okay, But one of them was that your brain is like a radio receiver, and the soul is sending out these signals, and so the receiver can get broken, but the sender is still fine. And it's like, so the sender is the soul, and then the radio receiver is your brain. So like somebody whose brain doesn't work quite right or whatever is like, well, they still have a soul because it's just not being received. So I'm like, okay. I mean,
I haven't heard that particular.
It makes a kind of sense in a way, because you're like, oh, okay, so a TV can't receive a signal if the antenna is broken, or a radio can't receive. Okay, that makes sense. But on the other side, it's like, well, but it doesn't make sense, because what good does it do you that the thing is broadcasting if you can't receive it? And then if it was broadcasting, well, we would have evidence of that, wouldn't we? So,
Yeah, it sounds good, but it seems to have a lot of holes.
Yeah. But and again, with like somebody that had amnesia or whatever, it's like, well, that person's is a completely different person now, and so I mean, it's not an easy, it's like, well, and I'm a different person than I was when I was 12 years old. So what does that mean?
That's a whole fascinating thing. Are we the same people are we the same person or a different person? No, that's a whole.
Well, it's funny, because when I look at my videos as Infinite Hope, and I'm just like, I didn't say what? No, I didn't say that. Like, I can't, it's like, that's me, but no, that can't be me. I'm not, it's weird, to have that.
I think Seth Andrews said it best for all of us. Religion made me talk like an idiot.
Yeah, I don't know that I agreed with him on that, but I mean, I got where he was coming from, but yeah. No, you can't link things in the chat unless I make it. I don't know how to. Just email me the links and I'll put them in the description. Everyone should know my email by now. Yeah, I don't know how to make people mods. I don't know how to work. I don't know how any of this works. So yeah.
Well, you're doing better than I did, considering you had to explain to me how to see the chat.
Yeah, well, it's fine. Okay, so somebody had said we had gone for like several hours. I don't know if you're.
Oh yeah.
Are you worn out or do you or?
I think I'm babbled out.
I mean, look, I'm sure there's some topic we haven't explored. Let me think. Okay, what topic would just either piss everybody off or make everybody so happy? Oh, I know. Okay.
Oh no.
Okay. Wait, no, I've got it. No, it's the thing that I made a meme like before in this other chat, and like once I did it, like the whole thing derailed. It was great. So if there was a button, no, I'm not gonna go. No, I'm not gonna go with the button. Don't go with the button. Don't go with the button. No, the button thing.
Guys, do I need to be running?
The button was great. No, let's yeah. All right, so some people know about the button. Snuffy knows about the button. I'm gonna do the button. Do the button. Doesn't matter. Do it. Okay, the button. So if we could have a button that gave us an orgasm. And like how many times people would push it, and they came up with it would be a bad idea, and I'm like, no, that'd be because it'd be all you would do would be to push the button, and so you'd just like die, you'd run out of food and you wouldn't care about anything else. Yeah, it was great because it derailed whatever conversation they were having about real stuff. I didn't mean it to; it just came into my mind. But see, in this particular instance, didn't work because it's not that funny right now. I don't know why. So I shouldn't have listened to my other self.
And my other self, you're talking to a scientist who knows that those studies have been done on rats.
Oh yeah. And the rat, they'll die, right? They like will push the button and nothing else, right?
In some cases, yes.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So it's like, oh, just switch the damn thing on. That's it.
My brain goes to the scientific studies.
Yeah. What do you think about? Okay, we'll end with a serious thing. The was it rats or mice? The hotel thing that was perfect. The I think it was Mouse Utopia. Had you heard about that at all?
Oh boy, that's ringing bells, but not enough that I can really.
Okay, so they had set up this perfect Mousetopia where there was plenty of food and water for all the mice and plenty of room. And they started with however many mice, and then the population expanded and all this. And eventually it hit this peak where there was no more population being produced, and that the mice had voluntarily segregated themselves to different sections of the area, even though everything was completely identical. And then there was these mice that were acting one way, and these other mice that were acting a different way, and all these different sort of traits came out of it. It was a really interesting study. And then there was,
I just pulled it up on Wikipedia to remind myself. The behavioral sync and urban sociology psychology thing. I haven't studied this much because it doesn't apply directly to veterinary medicine as far as just treating. But I remember reading about this in some sociology or psychology class I had to take in undergrad. It's really fascinating. As I understand it, and as I vaguely remember it, and again, this is really vague memories. They really need to do some more. It needs to be repeated with different variations to the structure to see if what he actually saw is real.
Yeah.
And then the question is, does what happens in something like a mouse or a rat, how how transferable is that to something that has more control over its environment, like a human?
Humans, right? Well, that was the idea, was that, well, if we had a perfect quote unquote society, that the same thing would supposedly happen to us. And I agree. It's like, we're not even, I mean, it's not even close. You'd have to do it with primates, I would think. You'd have to do it with
And that would be
monkeys.
really unethical and very difficult and dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it'd be
Well, just for the primates, because
would it be unethical? I mean, you're treating them humanely. You're providing them with food and water and plenty of places to live.
yeah, it's just experience. So to begin with, I don't know how much people know about this, but to begin with, to experiment with primates, you have to jump through some really large hoops. So if you're at a university, which is where a lot of this kind of research goes on, you got to get through your own university's ethical guidelines, and then if your state has any rules, you got to get through those, and then if you're intending to use the research for anything, you got to get through whatever guidelines that the federal government has set up, because primates are so intelligent and aware, and it is so easy for things to go wrong. But putting a large groups of primates together, it can be dangerous, because if they don't get along, it's bad enough when rats turn on each other and eat each other alive, which they do. If you get primates beating up each other, it's just like people who can't get along, who are trapped together.
Yeah, but they're far stronger and they can really, tear each other apart. So yeah,
rat can tear another rat apart.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
yeah. So okay, let me ask this, because this is something that was asked to Bernard Russell, and I thought it was a great question. So imagine, years from now, the people will be listening to this. What would you want to say to those people?
People years from now.
Yeah. What wisdom, what thoughts would you want to impart upon future generations?
Always keep looking, because the day you stop looking and learning and challenging yourself is the day you gave up and the day you died.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, let's end it there. Thanks, Atheist Snail. Be sure to subscribe to Atheist Snail. Like all the videos, and put the bell, and throw money at her if she ever does that stuff, or draw her snails and things. My request, if you can draw, is to draw her on top of Lot's wife, and yeah, do all that. And thanks for doing this. This was a thing we did.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but we did it. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
All right. Once we're off the air, we're totally going to talk about that thing. Oh, wait, we're not off the air yet. Quick, click, hit the button, you stupid.